So this is a webinar on facilitation techniques for Agile teams. And it is me. I'm Svetlana, and I'm Agile and Career Coach at Luxoft Agile Practice. I have been working for 12 years in IT, and I have occupied positions of project and department manager. I worked as a computer linguist, as a technical writer, and quality assurance. My main interest is project management, agile transformations, and career management, and psychology. When you start any meeting or when you start any group activity, it is quite good to start it with some warm-up. The warm-up is, the another name for warm-up is icebreaker. And it is good to find a name of the person and interesting facts of the people that you work with. It is the purpose of the warm-ups. Warm-ups are usually quite okay to make the atmosphere more friendly and to increase trust level and collaboration level. When you do warm-up, make sure you time box it. And warm-ups usually should take quite a short time, probably no more than 5 minutes. Make it comfortable for participants to take part in warm-ups. Involve all participants in warm-up because you would like to have the friendly atmosphere for everybody, right? It is also quite a good practice to make a warm-up when you are waiting for participants to join the meeting. For instance, if someone is late and you need to wait for 5–10 minutes till everybody arrives, it is good when people came in time, but sometimes it doesn't happen, so you need to wait, and you can list some warm-ups for yourself to start the meetings with it. It is also good to explain the purpose of warm-up, because then people can start asking why we're doing this stuff. What you should try to prevent when doing warm-ups. Prevent critics. It is not the place where people should argue about something. It's a place where people should feel comfortable and trustful to each other. Avoid kinesthetic exercises. You can see some warm-ups where people can touch each other. I try to avoid such warm-ups because for some people it can be quite uncomfortable. So change these warm-ups on something else. Don't leave the group. So you can't, as a facilitator, you can't say to people, okay, I'm providing you warm-up and leaving the group, just do whatever you like. No, you just continue to facilitate the session. Try to decrease side conversations because during warm-ups people can tend to start some off topics because they start feeling comfortable, start laughing aloud. So try to focus people on warm-up activity. I also have prepared several examples of warm-ups for you. The first example of warm-up is so-called tribes game. The idea of the game is that a person, some person of the group came in a space without people and say, my tribe likes, for instance, read books. And people from the group who also is interested in reading books came to this person, give him high five, and like form a tribe. And then another person came and say, okay, my hobby is snowboarding. And then another people came to this person, give him high five. You can also add here a possibility for a person to say his name if it is a new group and his position in the project. For instance, someone came and say, I'm Svetlana, I'm Agile Coach, and I'm enjoying going to movies. Who is my tribe? And people came to me, give me high five, and we're becoming more familiar with each other in such a way. What else? Say your name and adjective. I like this warm-up. You usually use it when you're in familiar group, when you need people became more familiar with each other. when you like people remember the name. Remember the name, and what even more better, remember some facts about the person. For instance, a person, you can use actually these, I'm using a ball to use it when using this warm-up, but you can use any object you can pass to each other. For instance, a person says a name and then says an adjective that starts with the same letter than a name of the person. For instance, a person says, I'm Alex and I'm accurate, and pass some talking to another person, and then again the person says a name and some adjective. Constellation example. It is again to find out the opinion of the group on some statement of the person. Someone states, for instance, that projects can be done without management, and the people who are very agree with this statement came closer to the person, and the people who are very disagree with this statement come far from the person, and people in such a way form constellation around the person. By the way, you will have all the webinar materials, and if you will need to find the details of each game, you will for sure have my recording, like voice recording, and you can Google it. So Constellation game is a very popular one. Another game is My Thing. People sitting in a round and describing something, some belongings of themselves. For instance, a person can say, here is my phone, I have bought it after my previous phone was washed in my washing machine, and tell some story about his phone or his ring or his clock. It usually provides also not only describing of some belongings, but also description of some story about the person. It also warms up the atmosphere. Journey line is a game where people draw a journey line on a flip chart paper, for instance, starting from their school or university. It's a graph, like with upside downs, and then presented it to the team and saying, here is my journey line, in such a year I have finished my university, and in such a year I have found my job, and my job was good. That is why the graph comes up, and people become more familiar with each other. It is quite good usually to make this game not only in new teams, but you can do this game with people who know each other for some time. They will for sure find out new facts. And another game is My Word. It is so-called aha game, when people try to understand what is actually the rules of the game. For instance, a person saying again, like some person is Alex and he's saying, you know, my word is accurate, but no one knows that the rule of the game is to say a word that starts with the letter of the person's name. And then another person say, okay, for instance, my word is lazy, and the person with Lena name says this. But no one knows the rule, how it should be played. Everybody pronounces some adjective or some word, but when people start understanding the rule of the game, they start providing their own words, which corresponds to their name. Where you can use the warm-ups. When you're forming a new team, for instance, your project becomes bigger and you need to hire a new team and people are coming, and you can start their introduction with this warm-ups game. When new members coming into the team, you can also make warm-ups during the introduction of this team member to the team. It is good to make warm-ups during retrospectives or town halls. You can also do it during project or release sessions. For instance, if people are usually bored with these sessions, you can start it with warm-up to make them more involved, probably a bit more enthusiastic, because it will be new activity and people can become more interested in it. You can also do it with stakeholders meeting with the team. For instance, when stakeholders or some clients came into the team, you can do this with them just to play a bit, to know each other better. That is all information about warm-ups, and now I would like to describe you actually who is a facilitator as I think. Here is one example of facilitation style and facilitator, which I quite often see how people perceive facilitator and facilitation in general. So facilitation or facilitator is usually perceived as a person who knows all answers for the questions, or for instance as a person who can judge opinions of others or evaluate group decisions. For instance, a facilitator say this is wrong and that is right, and actually it is not okay. It is not okay to be such a facilitator. Facilitators should try not to control the conversation, but to engage people into discussion, involve people into discussion, but not saying who is right or who is wrong, and not providing direct instruction, because it is more like management, and facilitation is not management, and is not administration of the meeting or event. Facilitators should not try to fight with better opponents and take us out of good fellows. So facilitator is very neutral person. And also facilitators should not rescue anyone. If there is some quarrel or there is some strong arguments in a group, facilitators should use some facilitation techniques, and we will talk later about it, but not providing to rescue a particular person, but to rescue the conversation itself. Here is example of actually good facilitator, like good facilitation style. Facilitator is usually invisible or neutral on during meetings or events. Facilitator is a professional who knows facilitation techniques. Facilitator is tactful and loyal to everybody's opinion. Facilitator has some trust in the group, and he trusts that the group is able to find the decisions by themselves. Facilitator tries to understand the questions that come inside the group. He is energizing and encouraging people, and he is open-minded to different opinions. Here's in general what is facilitator, and who is Agile facilitator. Agile facilitator is the person who knows lots of Agile techniques, but he also follows Agile Principles and Agile Values. And just to remind you, the Agile Values, there are 4 of it, and probably all of you know it. And Agile Principles from Agile Manifest, here it is. So when you do facilitation as Agile facilitator, you should make sure that you know Agile Principles and Agile Values and facilitation techniques, and base your facilitation styles and facilitation technique on these principles and values. And here we are coming to a set of techniques that are called gathering information techniques. And the first one technique is BrainSwarming. It is quite a new technique. It was provided and created by Tony McCartney, and the idea is probably best explained using an example from the lives of insects. Unsolved problems by leaving signals in their environment that influences the behavior of the others. The insects do this when searching for food, and successful insects leave traces of pheromones along the trails as a signal to others to follow them. So during this technique, the group states some problem on some paper on the table, on some paper on the walls, and then provide a time for themselves, or facilitator provides some time for the group to create these lines and create these solutions. What I mean by this is only the statement is, the main statement is defined, and then some people can start defining the instruments, like coming from the bottom to the top, the instruments for defining this statement, for solving this statement. And some people can came from up to the bottom and trying to provide like some possible sub-solutions. And also some sub problems or sub statements, and somewhere in the middle the solutions can come up. This technique is made silently, so people only write and use stickers and markers to define their opinion, and they're coming from up and bottom. You can also make it as a game. I have made it for 2 teams to see, for instance, who will be faster to find a solution. Here is the game rules, and you will also receive it and can make it in your team. So the purpose of this brainstorming activity is to generate lots of solutions in silent mode. It also helps to improve collaboration in team, to gamifying process of gathering information, and to encourage bottom and bottom-up thinking, because it's 2 different levels of thinking. And for some people it is actually much easier to think about the instruments for the solution and not to start solving the solution itself. It can also provide it as a team-building game like AHA task. How you should act with this facilitation technique. You should prepare environment, you should prepare stationery, you should clearly explain the purpose of this game, and you should explain the rules. You should also track the rules and time box the activity. By the way, the author of this technique, Tony McCartney, is still alive, and you can contact him. I have contacted him for several times discussing the results of this technique, and he was advising me how to do it better in next time. So what you should try to avoid doing using this technique, you should try to minimize verbal communication, because it is silent mode technique. You shouldn't insist on doing this exercise if people don't understand the rules, because it is quite new and innovative technique. So for some people it's quite difficult to understand why it should be done in such a way. And try not to encourage competition inside one team. If you're providing this technique for 2 teams, then it is fine when there is competition between them, but there shouldn't be competition between people inside. You can use this technique for some complicated and long-lasting issues. For instance, you have described some problem for several meetings all alone, and the problem is still not solved. So you can provide this technique as a new method or new possibility to solve it. For problem-solving sessions where domain experts are not available, when there is no person who can say that this is the right way to do this or this is the wrong way to do this, when people in a group should be able to work out some approaches. And for AHA tasks when it is necessary to think out of the box. This technique, like mind mapping, probably you know already, or maybe someone else using already this technique. It was invented by Tony Bizarre, and it is mostly used for information visualization structurally. It is a new way of thinking, it is a non-linear way of thinking, and it helps to unlock creativity. How to do it? Start with some center topic, like you should center the main topic. You can also use images and symbols. It is better to use some images and symbols, just not just text. You can select keywords. The lines of the mind map should be connected to each other, and don't forget to use some multiple colors like pens or pencils. It makes the mind map look more attractive and focus the attention on it. What should you try to avoid when doing mind maps? Mind maps, you can't add lots of text in mind map, so keep it in mind. Mind map is not the fastest way to combine the information. You need time to create it, especially if you are providing this facilitation approach to the team. If you're a line thinker, if you think like logically, like you need to understand what goes after what, probably it is also not the best way to do it in mind mapping. And when you don't have enough space for drawing, so you should try to avoid this method. How to use it and when to use it. You can use it when you're preparing for presentation, for workshops, for trainings, just for yourself. Or for instance, if you're as a team working on some presentation, you can use a mind map to make sure that you prepare everything necessary for this presentation. You can use it for group meetings, for problem solving, for retrospective. You can also use mind maps. Instead of just writing some items, you can combine it into groups and use my mind map to sort it out. For note-taking in a personal mode, as a summarization of some information and just collecting information and brainstorming some ideas. One more technique that is quite good to use for information gathering is Mindwriting or Brainwriting, and some of you probably already using it. It is used for individual mode. One person just sits silently and writes his or her ideas. It is necessary to give a person like time limit for how long it should happen, for instance 10 minutes. And a person should keep the handwriting until this time is up. It is important to let the people to use all the time. This is a very background activity that can be used in different facilitation techniques, for instance in 635 brainwriting technique. So as a background to different techniques. Don't use this technique if you already have several good ideas, because mind writing great and works pretty well when you don't know the answer. If you know the answer, no need to use this. It can be a bit boring, this activity, because you're just sitting and writing and no talking is allowed, and it can take time. For instance, if you need to gather ideas from people on retro and you don't want people start saying it aloud, because there are people who like saying aloud some things and there are people who don't like. There are people who are more vocal than other people. So you can, when you need to involve all participants into some activity, into work on some problem, you should provide them time for brainwriting and then gather these ideas from everybody. So everybody is inputted something. A new set of facilitation technique is information exploration. And the first technique here is a home and away, also called World Café technique. At first, this technique is used as a social event for people who came to a cafe and would like to discuss some book or some movie or some social event. But it can easily be used for some technical meetings as well. There are several World Café principles that you need to follow to organize this game. And the game is organized in the following way. You sit people, you make groups of people, for instance, groups of 4, 3, 5 people. It works better when you have lots of people to make this technique. People sitting in a group, and group is discussing some problem. Then one person from the group continues to stay near the table while all the rest is coming to a new table. And this person who is continuing to stay at the previous table, hosting a new group that came to him and describing this new group the ideas that arise during the discussion of the previous group. So people exchanging their ideas in this facilitation mode. So everybody at the end is aware of each opinion. And again, the purpose of this meeting is a collaborative dialogue, is a possibility to connect diverse perspective and team building, because sometimes when you need like 60 or 50 people exchange their opinion, it can become a chaos. And in such facilitation technique, you can do it very quickly, and you can make sure that everybody knows what everybody has in mind, because at first people discuss the ideas in small groups, and only then the host remains in the table, and when a new group came to the host provides describes the ideas that were already discussed on this table. The topic for all the tables should be the same. How to do it? Clarify the context. Create hospitable space. It's not necessary to be a cafe. It just can be tables in some conference room. Focus on the idea that matters. You should provide just one idea for all tables to discuss. Link and connect ideas that are arising on the table. Encourage contribution of everybody who is sitting at the table, and share collective discoveries. The host should be the person who is left at the table, and hosting a new group should be quite open-minded and have good communication skills to be able to explain a new group what was described by the previous group. It works pretty well for big groups, not for small groups, because if you have small groups, you should use different facilitation technique, not this one. This is okay to use for at least 3 groups or 5 people. So for 15, 20, even it can be used very well for 40, 50 people. You need to facilitate how people moving around tables. You should make sure that there is no chaotic movement. You just say, okay, in 3 minutes we're changing tables. 3 minutes passed, all the people stand up and move to a new table. This technique can be used when you are facilitating a meeting for several teams that are working on one project. And also it can be used as a team building activity. For instance, if you would like to discuss some event that has happened on the project, or if you would like to discuss, for instance, relocation issues, you can also use this technique. Another technique is 6 thinking hat technique, and I like this technique a lot. Here you should group people, for instance, in one group or in several groups, and they choose the hat and start describing their ideas from the perspective of this hat. For instance, white hat provides only facts on some issue. Yellow hat is a very positive hat, and this hat provides some optimistic view on the statement. Black hat can criticize the statement. Green hat should provide solutions and some innovative approaches to solve the statement, to solve the problem. Blue hat is a manager of the process. Blue hat coordinates the activities of different hats, and red hat provides his or her feelings on the situation. This technique can be used in a group mode, like there are 6 people in a group and each of a person wears so-called hat. This technique can be also used as in individual mode, when you would like to understand some statement and to explore the statement from different perspectives. It can work pretty well on planning when discussing estimations. For instance, why is the team providing this kind of estimation or another kind of estimation? Like, everybody can wear a hat and avoid quarreling. I mean, if someone is usually disagreeing with everybody, for this exercise, probably he or she should use yellow hat, because yellow hat is usually for something and not contra something. This technique can be also used for retrospective, when you're discussing retrospective results, when you're discussing sprint results. You can also use this technique when discussing implementation approaches, or you can use this technique even to train your facilitation or your new way of thinking. There is also recommendation when you should do and do not use this technique. You can read it because I will provide you with a presentation. I like this technique a lot, and there is also a short variant of this technique. It is called optimist versus pessimist. For instance, when there are two people and one of the person is very for some idea, and another person shows signals of strong disagreement with this idea, you can just advise these people to switch for a minute. The person who was pro becomes contra for a minute, and the person who was contra becomes for a minute. So they should try to change their point of view. One more activity, facilitation activity, that I would like to describe is a check-in activity. Check-ins usually happen in the middle of some meetings when you need to understand the emotional state of participant. There are several examples, as you see here, of this facilitation technique. The main idea is to understand how people feel in the right given moment. If you get not very good results, for instance, if you see that everybody write that they are sad or they're mad, which means angry, or you should probably do something with this. You should deal with this situation. So don't use this check-in if you already know the state of the group. But if you are not sure, or you need to warm up a bit people, or you need to encourage them a bit, for instance, after coffee break or lunch, you can use this technique. You can also start stand-up with check-in activities. For instance, ESVP. ESVP means explorer, shopper, visitor, and prisoner. For instance, you can ask people who is who and why you came to this meeting. For instance, if a person is explorer, this person usually seeks for new information. If a person is a shopper, shoppers usually are okay with all information that came to it. If it is vacationer, it means that the person is glad to do anything but not work. And if a person is a prisoner, it means that the person who was asked to came to this meeting, but the person actually don't want to be present on this meeting. The people can also not say like ESVP, but can use just one word to describe their current state or to draw some image. Such activity can be a separator between several parts of the meeting. For instance, product backlog refinement, or when you see that there is something happening in the group but you can't understand what is the reason. What is the reason that everybody is bored, or what is the reason that there is some conflicts in the group? You can make this check-in activity. Used technique is about evaluating information. And here we can use voting techniques such as thumb up, pipe to fist, and voting with dots. Thumb up is quite an easy technique. You can ask people if they're okay, just put your thumb up. If you're not okay, you put your thumb down, and if you're neutral, just put your thumb horizontally. Pipe to fist, again, if people vote with all their 5 fingers, it means they're very okay with the decision. If they vote with 4 fingers, they are not so okay. 3 is even worse than 4, and so on and so forth. But if people vote with a fist, it means that they are better on the situation, that they ban some statement, that they're not okay about it. So it is actually the extended version of the thumb up. And voting with dots, it means that you write some solutions or some problems that you would like to discuss, and you ask people to prioritize it. you provide people, for instance, provide markers and ask them to put the dots to the most important for them items. So first, people put one vote to one dot to one item, and then provide 2 dots on another item, and then you summarize the dots and prioritize the items that were chosen by the group. The purpose of this technique gives each participant a possibility to influence on decision. So you should define the procedure to follow. You should make sure that everybody is okay with these voting rules and with the usage of technique. And you shouldn't use this technique if you think that the group needs time to discuss more, because it is an evaluation technique. So first you need to gather information, to explore it in details, and only then evaluate it. So if groups need more evaluation or exploration over information, just use exploration or gathering techniques, and after this, only after this, evaluation technique. What else? You can use these techniques on plannings to vote for sprint backlog candidates. You can use it on retro to vote for improvement backlog candidates. Any meeting you need to come to some decision as a group. Also, quite popular evaluation technique is pro-con list. You just put some benefits in pro section and some disadvantages in con section. You can use this technique discussing some technological stack, some implementation approaches of user stories or migrations to any new platform. It's quite a simple approach, and it has its advantages and disadvantages as well. Because if the solution, if the problem is very complex and very complicated, you'd better avoid using this, because some problems have many characteristics and of different importance, and you will need to make sure that these characteristics are of the same importance to use this technique, not of different importance. One more technique, evaluation technique, is Affinity Line, and you can use it easily for when you need to sort out a big bulk of scope. For instance, you are just starting a project and you need to provide some estimation, and you have just very, very high-level epics. You put these epics on a wall in a line and ask people, for instance, the people should be aware of this high-level description of these epics, and ask the people to, for instance, during 20 minutes to organize these items in a new line. So on the left side there were smaller items, and on the right side there were larger items. So in such a way you can have at least some relative estimation. It works well when you don't know the scope pretty well. It's just the starting of the project or new phase of the project. When you have this line, you can split the epics further and decide that tiny items is X or S size. For instance, small items are of L size and big items are of L and giant XL. It is estimation. Affinity means you estimate one item comparing to the item that is next to it. So you actually always comparing just two items. You comparing these two items, and then you came to new pair and comparing next items. You not compare all items to each other, but you compare just item to one item to one item. That is why it is called affinity. It can be used for relative estimation gathering, for high-level estimation, for scope dependencies investigation, for project roadmap creation. So it is initial activity when you have a huge scope and you need somehow start dealing with it. But I ask you to avoid calling them this estimation as project plan, because some teams do this estimation, get some maybe numbers, or get some understanding of the scope, and trying to create a project plan out of it. You need more time to create project plan. You need to discover user stories in details. This technique is just the first step of project plan creation, but can't be used as a project plan itself. Here is more techniques to work with project scope. It is a prioritization matrix. As you see, there is business value on one axis, and there is also difficulty of implementation, like time, cost, effort, risk, that should take into account. You put your user stories inside this matrix. For instance, some user story can take a long time to create, like feature 13, and bring really low business value. And if you have a group of such stories, you should try to stay away of development, because there is no sense, no business value in it, and difficulty and lots of implementation time spent on it. The main features you should focus on is the features that provide you high business value and low implementation of effort time. There is also a group of features that you should think about and trying to maximize its value, because it takes you quite less effort to create it, but you need to understand how to maximize the value of it. And there is also a group of features that you can prioritize in such a way that you will see they have very high business value, but it takes long to develop it. So you should think about how to actually split it probably and remain the business value, but to decrease the time spent on its implementation. One more model for features prioritization is a KANO model, and here we have customer satisfaction level, and here we have execution, also called quality. You can use it to identify the features that are basic for your application, the features that you must do, because if you don't do these features, the satisfaction of the client will be very, very, very low. For instance, if there is no login page on your application, the client satisfaction will be very low. There is also a set of features that even if there is no of these features in application, the client still be happy, but if there is these features in application, the client will be very, very, very happy. It's some extra functionality, but very cool functionality. You can think about this functionality in your application, and also using this KANO model identify this functionality. And there is a performance, is just the performance of the application. For instance, the lower the response of the application is, the lower the satisfaction, and the higher the response, the better the satisfaction. The less bugs the application has, the lower the satisfaction, and the less bugs, the higher the satisfaction. Actually, we mostly focus usually on this performance graph, but we should also think about like this excitement graph and this basic graph. So when to use these KANO and prioritization matrix? Definitely during product backlog refinements, during strategic planning, to manage stakeholders' expectations, or to discuss the scope on review, to discuss the scope for several sprints ahead during review. But if you can't influence on the scope, you'd better not to use this technique, because you can use actually to show to the client, but there is no decision-making people among the people who are you showing these techniques. No need to do it, because then you will not be able to change anything. Even if you see that you're always focusing only on performance and not excitement features, you can't change it if there is no people who can say, okay, we can do this excitement features. It's really cool. One more topic that I would like to talk to you today is how we should deal with dysfunctional behavior in a team using some facilitation techniques. To start with this topic, I would like to discuss with you a bit group dynamics, because some problems and some dysfunctional behavior in a group can happen not due to some people, but due to the group dynamic in general. Each group came through these stages. It is a KANO model, and the first stage the group came is forming, and on forming stage the performance of the group is quite low, and people just organizing all together. They don't know each other very well, they don't know their work very well, so they are just starting. In storming phase, the performance became even lower because people find out some information about each other and can start arguments, can start providing their approaches, their understanding of the situation. So it is a storming stage, and it's quite difficult for the team to go through it. There is also numbing stage when some people start coming back to work and start arguing. There is also performance stage when the team is highly performing, and there is also adjourning stage when the performance can start lowering. We are going to discuss these stages in details. For instance, you should, as a facilitator, you should be aware of the stage and aware what you should do on each stage. For instance, during forming stage, the goals are unclear for the team. There is a vague communication flow, absence of prominent leaders, and as a facilitator, you should try to build a common purpose of the team. You should identify expectations or help the team to identify the expectations of their stakeholders, of their management, and you should inspire and encourage team members to take responsibility, because on this stage there is no leaders. Then during the storming stage, there is high level of independence of each individual, there is lots of communication gaps, there is lots of misunderstanding in the team, uncertainty, and here you will have lots of dysfunctional behavior. You should try to, on this stage, as a facilitator, you should try to reduce toxic communication like blamings, finger pointing of people on one another. You should try to invite different opinions, to encourage different opinions, and to make people understand that loyalty to each opinion can work better for all of them. During the norming stage, the team gains some confidence and clarity, some relevance, start building relations inside the team, and start understanding the interdependencies between people. You, as a facilitator, should clearly define the process the team should follow. You should try to build feedback loops, discuss discipline, discuss rules that the team should follow, work out these rules together with the team, support negotiations and consensus in order to come to performance stage. And during performance stage there is quite less problems. Responsibility over tasks and relations is quite prominent in the team. There is high level of proactivity and collaboration. So as a facilitator you should think for retrospect for the events that happen in the team and seek for improvements. And you should celebrate success together with the team. You should organize some activities for team buildings for celebrating success, for evaluating the results, and also you should, as a facilitator, remind about the rules, because during this stage the team can feel very relaxing and can stop doing some activities. And it can bring team to this adjourning phase. And here we can see the lowering of performance. And here we can see lack of interest, irrelevant goals that the team defines for themselves. They can be low level of also of interest, of motivation, of team morale. Because there is also lots of stability during this stage, there is lots of satisfaction, so it is good stage, but the performance became lower and lower on this stage. And you can, as a facilitator, you should use different facilitation techniques to gain again interest of the team, to involve them all. But you can also discuss them with possibility about mobility on new teams, and also creating some networks, communities, or probably to switch to new projects if you have this authority. If you don't, you just, as a facilitator, you can start escalating these issues to management, because during this phase you can go again very low in performance. And during this phase and during storming phase, you can have lots of conflicts. And conflicts is dysfunctional behavior. I would like to show you first functional behavior. You can also discuss with teams like functional behavior patterns and dysfunctional behavior patterns to make sure people understand the difference and understand when they work dysfunctionally. Because some people can think that talking loudly during meetings is fine. For instance, repeating the same ideas many times, it's fine. But you can show them that as a facilitator, for instance, you could just print some version of these dysfunctional behavior patterns and show it to the team and discuss it with them. I'm doing these activities in teams from time to time just to make sure that we are on the one page, that, for instance, whispering with neighbors during meeting is not fine in our team. And we are all would like to be focused on the meetings. There is also a stages of this dysfunctional behavior, like arriving late, leaving early, silence, lack of participation, even like physical attacking someone. But as a facilitator, you should for yourself to decide on what level of dysfunctional behavior you would like to work. I mean, if you see that someone is physically attacking someone, probably here we don't need a facilitator, but we need some other person. And for instance, if it is not okay for you to deal with negative comments directed at a participant as a facilitator, you can just explain that it is not your role as a facilitator doing it. So you can use this graph for yourself to understand which situations are okay for you to deal with as a facilitator and not okay. I usually provide these games in some teams so they understand what is dysfunctional behavior. I ask team to stand up and to form a round, and I ask people who of you would like to be a facilitator for the next 5 or 10 minutes. It is good to provide this possibility to people who usually actually shows this dysfunctional behavior. Then I ask this person to leave the room for a couple of minutes, and then some of the people in the group choose the activities from this list that they would like to show when this person starts facilitating this group. So it is just imitation of facilitation and imitation of dysfunctional behavior. When the person comes into the group, we start imitating, for instance, daily stand-up, and someone is describing what he was doing during the previous time, and someone can start, for instance, talking loudly or laughing aloud, or start criticizing the person who is talking. And the person who is in facilitator role in this case should start dealing with this. It makes people to understand that this dysfunctional behavior during meetings is dysfunctional for all the team, and is dysfunctional facilitator and for the rest of the people in the group. What you can do also as a facilitator when you see some dysfunctional behavior, you should first observe the behavior. You should make sure that the people are really providing dysfunctional behavior. You should try to understand the meaning of what is going on. Then you should try to understand how you're going to intervene, how you're going to interfere. then you should describe the behavior for the rest and test it for different views. What it is meant? It means that you discuss with the group. You're talking just, hey guys, I see that you are arguing. Are you both okay about these arguments? If they say yes, then okay, let them argue. But if they say, some of them say, start blaming game, or start saying, I don't want to listen to him, I don't want to talk to him, you should say, let's do the following, and provide them some solution. And if they say that they're okay with this solution, they can start implementing it. If not, then not. You can't just make people do something, because we are all grown-ups, so you can just recommend as a facilitator. You can observe, you should remind the people that probably they have a conflict. You should recommend them the solution and help them in implementation of this solution. But if they don't want to deal with this solution, then just don't insist. Because we're not in kindergarten, yeah, we are all grown up, so we should take responsibility for our actions. There is also a scenarios for facilitation, how it is better to do and how it's better not to do. So the situation can be the following. The group don't understand what it is expected from them. And it is not quite good to repeat the purpose once and once again. It is quite good then to explain the purpose in different words and to provide some examples. Examples usually help people to understand. When you see that there is a domination of some participant in a group, it is a bad idea to stop the person, because then you stop the energy of this person that are coming into this group. It is better to ask others to speak up. I mean, to encourage others to be involved in conversation, but don't stop the person who is speaking. Or to make some facilitation technique like brainwriting, for instance, so everybody can be heard and can be involved. For instance, ask a person to provide each person a minute to talk, so everybody have the same time slot. If you hear some side conversations, it is a bad idea to ask to focus on the topic, but it is quite a good idea to ask a person who is providing side topic to link this to the main topic. Or you can use parking lot. Parking lot, it is a flip chart that is put it on a wall. You can put the off-site topics into it and come to it after the meeting, when the main topic is discussed already. When people using mobiles and laptops on a meeting, yeah, you can ignore it or you can ask them to stop using. But it is better to just discuss some ground rules of our presence on the meeting. If there is in ground rule a line about not using of mobiles and laptops and everybody agreed on it, then you just ask people to remind them about ground rules and to ask them to follow our ground rules. You can also see such dysfunctional behavior like arriving for the meeting late, and it is a bad idea to start moving meeting to 5, 10, 15 minutes. It is better to start on time or to start only when all participants arrive. If a person starts repeating him or herself all the time, even if you say to him or her that you got him, it probably won't work, but you can paraphrase him. You should say to him what he or she is telling to you in a different word, but you should use the same time slot that she or she was using. For instance, he was speaking about something for a minute, and you should paraphrase him also for a minute, so he or she really understood that you got him. When most of the group lost focus, probably if you ask them to be more attentive, it will not work. Better to make a coffee break or just to break in the meeting and to gather together in 5 minutes, or to use some check-in activity or some warm-up activity to switch the focus. When participants discover a new topic, again, it will not work if you ask them to come on track, but if you ask them to link to this topic, to the main topic, it can work, because the person can start again thinking on track by himself or herself. Actually, here is all what I prepared for you today. And if you have any questions, you can write these questions in the questions or chat window. I will answer on it when I was providing you these webinar materials. Also, if you have some comments or recommendations, or you can provide me your feedback, I will be very glad to get it. I will remain the session open for 5 minutes more, so you're welcome. Thank you and have a good evening today. Goodbye.